Okay, well, another good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is just joining us for. It's awesome to see where you all are joining from in the chat. So please feel free to use the chat throughout the discussion. There's also a Q&A feature for asking questions. We'll be monitoring both. And we want this to be a conversation today. We want it to be an opportunity for you all to learn a little bit about Sustainable Development Goals or SDG Action and Awareness Week, learn how you can participate and engage, and also just have some general conversation with an interesting group of folks around the world. So thank you again for joining today. I'm Drew Cutright. I am a program director at the University Global Coalition, who's hosting this website today. I am joined by three fantastic panelists who are going to share their experience planning SDG engagements and share in conversation with us today. And I'm also joined by my SDG Week co-organizer, Christian Speedling, who is at the State University of New York central offices. So I will start with kind of a quick overview of what SDG Action and Awareness Week is. Some of you may have a background in it and participated before, and then for some it may be new. So first of all, the dates of SDG Action and Awareness Week, it's next week. February goes by so quickly. It's March 4th through 8th is SDG Action and Awareness Week 2024. This is actually our fourth SDG Action Awareness Week through University Global Coalition. And really, it's a time for university students, faculty, and staff, and partners of universities to highlight the work that they're doing to advance sustainable development. During this week, we invite participants to plan and host virtual sustainable development focused events that showcase the work that you and your partners are doing and that invites discussion. So these events are shared with the UGC global calendar and they're open to attendees from around the world. So a really interesting way to get to know a group of people that you might not have had contact with otherwise and start to brainstorm action. So you can participate through planning and hosting a virtual event. I know that's coming up soon, so we also invite you to join events, check out how it works next week, or you can also plan events on your own campuses. So over the last few years, we've seen a lot of growth of events happening on campuses related to local issues. And you can see details about this year's events. You can view previous events and you can access resources at our website, which I will put in the chat. And in particular, I wanted to point out a resource for those who are interested in planning an SDG event, either for this year's SDG week or for upcoming SDG events. And I wanted to point out this resource that I think is helpful, which is an event planning guide. And I'm going to put that link in the chat. If we have time or any questions about it later, we can go a little bit into what's in there, but it can really help you figure out kind of where to start if you're wanting to plan an event. All right. And then the other thing I would invite you to do, if you aren't able to attend an event or plan an event, you can also share your department or your university's work on social media or elsewhere online using the hashtag SDG Week 2024. And I will put that in the chat too. And then I think that's the last of my links. So we are happy to answer general questions about SDG Week in the chat or in the Q&A. But first, we are going to hear from a few panelists who are joining us today, and we're so lucky to have them. So I would like to welcome them. I will start by just reading a quick bio for each of the panelists, and then they will go in order and kind of share their experience planning sustainable development related events. So starting on the biographies, Kshamta Hunter from the University of British Columbia. Kshamta has over a decade of experience in sustainability learning and teaching, curriculum design, and program management. She holds a PhD in sustainability curriculum and pedagogy and teaches in the Faculty of Education at the University of British Columbia. Kshamta's research explores the intersections of sustainability learning and leadership using transformative learning and social innovation frameworks. She is interested in designing responsive and relevant integrative curriculum and pedagogical approaches for the 21st century through understanding the development of competencies for innovation toward sustainability. And she is the manager of Transformative Learning and Student Engagement with the UBC Sustainability Hub. Next, we have Dr. Jay Zhang. Dr. Jay Zhang is a professor of special education at State University of New York, Brockport. So SUNY Brockport. She earned her PhD in exceptional learning from Tennessee Technological University and teaches special education courses and supervises student teachers at SUNY Brockport. Her research focuses on the efficacy of interventions for children with disabilities, services for children with diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds and their families, online hybrid teaching, collaborative online international learning, and scholarship of teaching and learning in higher education. She received SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching, Open SUNY Online Teaching Ambassador Award, the Outstanding Academic Advising Award, and the inaugural Outstanding Global Engagement Award. Dr. Zhang serves as the Council for Exceptional Children Program Reviewer / Lead Reviewer at the national level. And last but certainly not least, and our first panelist, Pelin Sürmeli. Pelin is the organizer of SDG Action and Awareness Week at Koç University in Turkey in 2022 and 2023. She is an active member of the KU Sustainability Committee and an active member of the KU Leadership Lab. For 2 years, she was the coordinator of the KU Global Learning and Leadership for Sustainability Fellowship Program, where she mentored various sustainability projects of undergraduate students, organized tailor-made programs focusing on sustainability with international partner universities, and organized certification programs, including sustainability topics. Currently, she is doing her PhD in the Strategy and Management Department at KU Graduate School of Business. All right, I'll invite Pelin to start, and then Kshamta will follow her, and Jay will close us out. And after they share a bit about their work, we'll have plenty of time to discuss how we can support each other in our SDG work and answer any questions you have. So, Pelin, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction and also for organizing this beautiful event, both Drew and Christian. It's I'm very honored to be here, and I'm very excited, to be honest. I have this little presentation that I would like to share my screen and show you. Can you see it? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, but I cannot see that. Just a sec, please. Yes. Oh, this Zoom panel is just, I'm trying to do this logistic arrangements. Okay, I can see that now. Perfect. Thank you for your patience. Hi, everyone. My name is Pelin. Well, Drew introduced me very well, so I don't want to take more time from this seminar. So without further ado, let me start. Today, I'm going to share the lesson learned, what we did, what was the good experiences, what was the bad experiences, what worked for us, and what was huge fail. And I will be very transparent what we have experienced about this SDG week. I must say it was very hard, but it was very rewarding. It was very fun to do, to participate, to organize it. So yeah, I am going to share our lessons learned about our 2022 and 2023 SDG week at Koç. Let me briefly explain what I'm going to share today with you. The planning process, the student engagement was our priority while organizing it. So I am talking a little bit about this. Afterwards, just very briefly, I will show you what kind of events we organized in terms of understanding the diversity of the topics and the formats. And I am going to share our standardized event outline because we got a lot of positive feedback about this, especially for the roundtables. I'm going to tell you in a bit. And then briefly, I will, close by emphasizing some very important lesson learned. And if you would have any questions, I will answer them. I will answer them later. So, while I am very excited, I'm sorry. In terms of student engagement, I would like to start by saying that when we learned about this SDG Action and Awareness Week, the first thing came up to our mind is the student engagement, creating a proactive engagement and empowering students to do proactive participation to the week, not only coming and listening, like this didactic one-way passive learning, sitting in a classroom and listening to course, rather than not this, but rather being an active organizer of the SDG week actions. And we wanted to emphasize peer learning, create a peer learning environment for undergrad students specifically. So what we did is actually we call all of the undergrad students, we target the student clubs and certification programs, specifically sustainability related certification program at Coach, and tell them, folks, we are going to do this SDG week and we want you to be a part of it. If you are passionate about any kind of global problems related with sustainability, come our info session. And we have, especially in 2022, we have great interest from undergrads. They come to the info session. We tell them, what do you want to do? What is your passion? What do you want to talk about? And we did this periodic meetings with them, soul searching and stuff. Also, and afterwards, they decided I'm sorry, I'm getting these notes. I'm sorry. After the info session, we had this periodic meetings, and I actually do this mentorship to all of the undergrad students who wanted to do this participation and wanted to organize their own events, mainly roundtables and workshops, but mainly roundtables. I mentor them and help them to create their own soft skills, for example, organizing or organizational skills, communication skills, time management skills, and also question making. What I mean by that, most of our events were roundtables, and during the roundtables, rather than creating questions that had one certain answer, we want students to create such questions that will enable discussion. There is no right or wrong answer, but they would discuss the topic, the positives and negative sides of whatever that scenario would be. So we had a lot of effort during this preparation part, I must tell you. So get as much support as you can get during this process. This would be my first tip for you. And also, in terms of topic variety, I would like to emphasize that rather than going for SDG 158, we would like students to focus on global problems that would address multiple SDGs. And since the interest of the students vary, as you can see, we have very different topics. This is SDG 2022 program, from fast fashion to climate change effect on tangible cultural sustainability, for example. And the 2022 was virtual, by the way, it was online. And we also had 2023 last year, again, student roundtables, different topics in invasion species in our seas to microaggression, whatever the students would like to do. 2023 was on campus. And I'm going to talk to you about the difference between organizing a virtual versus on-campus event in a bit.
Hey, Pelin, sorry, this is Drew. I don't know if it's working for others, but I don't think the slides are advancing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to jump in. Just
No, thank you so much for saying that because it's important. So can okay. So can you see them like this? Is this working?
yes. Mhm.
It's not the ideal, but maybe we can go like that.
Yeah, I think that works.
That's okay. If you see them, maybe I can make them bigger like that.
Great. Yes, that's great.
Perfect. Okay, so those were the previous slides. Maybe thank you so much for jumping in. Those were the events. Again, I am really proud of the diversity of our events. So I really want to show you this is a 2022 program and this is 2023 program. 22 was virtual, 23 was on campus. Those are important. I will tell you in a bit. The second part of my presentation, I would like to cover the roundtable outline. First of all, we standard our roundtables, and majority of our students actually wanted to do roundtables because they wanted to do the discussion. But also discussing some topics such as microaggressions, such as gender equality could be tricky, right? So first of all, we want to start with community agreements. We want to start with the community agreements and letting them know that this is a safe space. Let us be mindful about our time and, our sayings and our thoughts. And afterwards, introducing the topic keywords rather than topic itself, rather than explaining as a lecture. We wanted to know the terms so that they could discuss about them. For example, we realized that majority of our students didn't know the term landfill. I'm from Turkey, so everyone gets rather good level of English in university, but landfill is a term that they're not familiar with. In Turkey, we have this word, but in English, maybe they don't know. So we introduced or microaggression, for example, this is a new term for them. They know what's going on, they understand the concept, but they didn't know the term. So we introduced the term, then the roundtable discussion, those questions, and we welcomed an expert. The organizers, students actually find an expert from an NGO, from an academic, from outside of Koç University as an organization, outside of university. They welcomed an expert, and the experts at the end of this discussion, expert gave like 15 minutes, 20 minutes of presentation, and there was a Q&A at the end of the session. And afterwards, we have 1-minute survey, which help us to report our social impacts. I will briefly talk about that as well. Community agreements, you can do whatever you want. Obviously, it differs from culture to country. This is what we did. And also trigger warnings are really, I think, important. We had a huge earthquake last week and we did this trigger warnings. And we got positive feedback by adding those so that they would know it is a safe space for them. Lastly, I'm sorry if I'm talking too fast. I'm trying to, I think I've lost some time with the slides, so I'm trying to, catch the time. So as I said, we had 1-minute survey at the end of each event, and in those surveys, we collect data. For example, in virtual SDG week, half of our participants were actually from outside universities, from our partner universities. So the internalization was really high, and it was really impressive, to be honest. And also we asked about the content, the moderator, the invited speaker, etc. And also ask open-ended questions, what's impressed them the most. And we have different kinds of open-ended questions so they could give their, different answers to different, like the moderator, the speaker, etc. So we also ask open-ended questions. And I must say that undergrad students loved to be an international environment because they discuss the same topic. For example, it happens in Brazil and Turkey at the same time. And some of the local problems based on that global issue is also the same. And they discuss this reactions, government reactions, local people reactions. It was really a fun process for them to be around. So which is in terms of diversity of the cultures and students, which was a success for us in 2022 when it was virtual. In 2023, it was on campus. The SDG week was on campus, and the number of participants were less than 50% from when you compare in 2022. So it was a huge shock for us, obviously, and also we wanted to understand why. Of course, the students, I mean, it comes after pandemic and students were kind of tired. There was a Zoom fatigue, but at the same time, with the feedback, we realized that they were looking for something. When it was virtual, they knew that there were international students, but when it was on campus, they was not such as motivated as they were in 2022. So lesson learned. First of all, in 2022, we communicated with our partner universities and invite them in our virtual events. I highly recommend you to do that. Second of all, we standardize our event structure and we got great feedback. So I highly recommend you to standardize your events for your own, to maximize your own efficiency. You know what is best for you, but for us, it was the standardized version of roundtable discussions, which I introduced a couple of minutes ago, and also get as much support as you could get. I mean, if I were to organize another SDG week, I would definitely do a reward system for participation to increase the participation. It could be a very small requirement in a course, or like bonus points in a course, or maybe a certification perhaps, or maybe you could, or I could add this structure of SDG week within a already existing certification program or fellowship perhaps. So those are our lesson learned. And thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you so much, Pelin. That was great. I also love the idea of awarding credits to students or some kind of extra credit for attending events. We all know they're always looking for extra credit. I think that's a universal thing there. All right, next up we have Kshamta Hunter from University of British Columbia.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Drew, and thank you, Pelin. That was a really comprehensive presentation. I wasn't gonna do any slides, but then I was just so inspired by Pelin and Angie's presentation that she just shared online as well. I just write my thoughts on the slides, but I didn't really thought about presenting them. But you know what? I'm gonna just share it so that I can walk you through my thoughts, so they are not pretty slides, but we will just walk through them because then I can talk through my points. So like Drew said, I work with the Sustainability Hub at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, and we are situated here on the unceded, traditional, and ancestral lands of the Musqueam people. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before I move forward, and I'm really privileged to be here on these lands. The SDG week, I'm going to mostly talk about that in this because that's what the session is about. But I would just like to share a little bit about the background. So SDG week at UBC was started primarily by students back in 2018. They came up with the idea of actually perhaps doing a SDG month at first. And then we were like, that's a bit too much to take on. So we'll start with a week. So it started with a week-long celebration of the global goals. And it was really the idea of let's celebrate the goals, but also let's bring people who are working on these goals together to create that community, to learn from each other and advance the goals in that sense. They also developed a lot of partnerships with faculty, staff, and community organizations that are locally in Vancouver. The focus was primarily on campus, so not necessarily beyond campus, but more at UBC. We got a lot of interest from individuals and organizations because of that 1 week celebration. A lot of people came out. They were, mostly for UBC, but a lot of folks from outside of campus came to attend those events. So we started talking to SDSN, which is the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in Canada, about a possibility of kind of broadening that approach. And they were interested. So just last year in 2023, we launched an SDG Week Canada. So it was a pan-Canadian kind of week celebration. We had over 55 Canadian institutions participate with over 100 events this past year. So this year is our second annual SDG Week Canada. And we are really excited about bringing more institutions, more organizations, and individuals together. So that was a background. In terms of the planning, we really wanted to engage students and kind of building on Pelin's talk, it's really, really important to engage students right off the bat in terms of just thinking about what kinds of issues they're interested in, what kind of issues are more prevalent and more relevant in your campus. And I think that's a good starting point to start working on building upon them. So kind of working on those relevant issues within communities, within local communities is the best way to approach it in my mind. Of course, you kind of broaden from there. Bringing individuals, especially students, but also staff, faculty, and community members who are really passionate. So bringing your team together is really, really key so that you're not alone in that working. One of the key things we do at UBC within SDG Week is this distributed planning. So we don't want to take on the whole planning of the whole week. We want people to be bringing in their own ideas, planning events in different parts of the institution, but also locally beyond our campus as well. So they contribute planning to our calendar of SDG Week as well. And then cultivating those partnerships, either through panels or key topics that really align with the goals of the organizations, but also support your institutional goals. So that has been one of the key approaches for us, that we are always linking what we are doing to our strategic plan at the institutional level to make sure that we are garnering support from the leadership as well. In terms of promotions, we do have a communications toolkit that we usually create and share out, because a lot of the times organizations or individuals, when they are planning events, they don't have the capacity often to build a promotional toolkit. So it's really nice to have that centralized toolkit that I can share in a bit in terms of how we develop that. So just producing some assets that could be used throughout, that kind of links that identity in terms of building that week. Having slides at the event. So the week-long conference has it's kind of has its pros and cons, but the good thing about it is that you can share a slide at every event and kind of let folks know at that event about more events to come throughout the week. And we found that emails and sharing information at the events we found was more successful than others in terms of social media and newsletters and other promotional aspects. These are some of the kind of events that we have done in the past and we are doing this year. Cultural celebrations is something that has been really successful in terms of bringing, kind of going beyond the Western approaches and really integrating other cultural approaches into advancing the goals. And that is something that really speaks to not just students, but also faculty, staff, and community members. I would talk a little bit about the roundtable dialogues like Pelin did, because when students started the SDG Week, they actually started with roundtable dialogues. The idea behind being that they wanted to hear from the community in terms of what are the awareness levels are at, but also what are the key issues that are really relevant in the community, so that we can bring more dialogues, more conversations, panels, events, webinars, and so forth on those topics. So roundtable dialogues, I would say, is definitely one of the key ways to start an SDG week and bring those community members together. Booths are another key way to kind of just outreach and bring folks who are not already into the fold, kind of outreach those who are beyond that circle of influence in some ways. In terms of the timing of the event, and this is really key for us because we are talking about audiences that are very diverse in terms of students, faculty, and staff. And we are thinking about commuter students who don't necessarily are living on campus. And our campus is kind of away from the city. It's kind of, it's like an hour long sometimes, or 2 hour long commute away from the cities where students live. So if they don't live on campus, they cannot necessarily stay during the evening events. So that is something that we often make sure that the events timings are inclusive in that sense. Usually lunchtime works really well if you want to do between 9 to 5, and usually you're catering to the staff and faculty who are working during that time. If you provide lunch, that's even better. People will come out for food, but also building community over food, right? And it's really a good way to create that. Evening events are really good because people are more free, but then you're also sacrificing that commuter students' participation as well. So having a balance of where you have kind of scattered these different events at different timings throughout the week is really important to consider as well. I will write my just share my email here, but I also wanted to quickly showcase and show you our SDG Week Canada website. It's just called sdgweekcanada.ca. And I wanted to show you, if you want, some ideas. There's a 2023 calendar that's linked here, and you can browse through some of these in-person, virtual, and all-day events. But you can also get an idea of what kinds of events were doing. So there's a roundtable with Minister Goud, actually, where our Canadian Minister of Children and Social Development, whose office actually holds a work on the SDGs, came and wanted to chat with students at universities and hear from them. So here's just some examples of various events that we have done, but you can also look at some of the virtual events in person, as well as some of the hybrid and all week long events that we have done in the past, just to get some examples of how we have approached SDG Week in the past. And with that, I will say thank you, and I wait for the questions.
Thank you so much, Kshamta. That was great and really impressive what SDS in Canada and network of schools did last year and since 2018. I didn't realize that you had one since 2018, so that's awesome. I particularly appreciate the power of leveraging existing networks as well. So I think that that is something to think about if you're planning, whether it's one SDG focused event or multiple, kind of leaning into people that you already engage with on these topics. And for now, I think we're going to finish up with our last presentation, but if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A, and then we'll have some time for discussion afterwards. Okay, so our final presenter is Zhang from SUNY Brockport, and I will turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Drew, for hosting, and thank you, Christian. And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you're seeing my screen now. Yes, enlarge it. Thank you. So thank you, Drew, for the introduction. I'm going to skip that and talk about our experience back in 2022. In March 2022, my partner Collaborative Online International Learning, COIL partner professor Silvia Garcia from Mexico, from Universidad del Caribe, and I co-hosted one workshop on COIL, specifically to address the sustainable development goal of quality education through COIL between Mexico and the US during the pandemic and post the pandemic. So this was what we hosted during that SDG 2022. And basically, we shared our experience as well as our students' experience during the pandemic and post-war to stay connected despite all the difficulties, which received which was very well received. And some benefits of offering this workshop and hosting this event at the SDG week, we found were some like opportunities to share our COIL journey and to have the opportunity to reflect on our learning and to discuss with our participants. We have the participants all over the world to come in, and because it was offered virtually. And also, it was a great opportunity to promote COIL. We have been doing COIL like starting right before the pandemic, so we like went through those together. So this was a great opportunity for us to promote COIL and also promote our two universities, and also how SDG, especially the quality education, can be done through COIL. And some tips we found was, for example, like we have two presenters and two hosts of the event. So like two hats are better than one. So both of us promoted the event, which helped draw larger audience. And the second benefits we found was the collaboration across divisions. So it's not only my partner professor or presenter and me to collaborate, but also we have to work with our IT and our communication departments, divisions. So they help to build the flyer. So you see two flyers here to promote the events. The left-hand side one was the one I created because back in 2022, we're required to build a flyer. And then my partner professor and their IT and communication divisions helped us to build a better one to attract more attendees, potential attendees. So this is the power of a community. And the third one is, the third tip I'm going to share is something like that. So UGC SDG week also provided us some templates and links that we can use to help us to be more consistent across different hosts. So this is just one example that we used, and we built this as our last slide in our workshop. But Drew also shared some information, as well as Christian also shared at the beginning of the workshop of this panel discussion. So please feel free to use these. This is the end of my slides, but just to talk about the lessons I learned from hosting the 2022 event was, the first one was to plan ahead. As Pelin and Kshamta talked about, the whole week's planning takes a lot of more energy and effort. But even with just one workshop or panel discussion or roundtable, planning ahead will be better than just in a hurry. The second one is to read the call for proposals carefully. and ahead of time so you can plan accordingly. I learned during our planning session from Drew that there has been some changes even between this year's and the last few years. So just to make sure you would like to read the corporate proposals and read the websites ahead of time. And the third thing is don't be afraid to contact people. It just take a village to raise a kid or raise like similarly it takes like a community to build events like this, especially if you're planning for a whole week, as my other panelists have already shared. So don't be afraid to contact those people like Drew, like Christian, and anyone who are available through the like websites. So you can build the event more efficiently and more successfully. This is the end of my thoughts, but last but not least, good luck if you are planning to offer any of the panel or activities in the coming week. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Jay. From your presentation, I was just thinking about the power of internal partnerships as well. I know you highlighted that some working across departments, working with technology. That's always a challenge, whether you're technologically capable or not. I know we all run against different issues there. So it looks like we have one hand up in the chat. So I was going to see if we had a question to start with. If not, I have a couple to run by you all to get some discussion started. But Antonina, I have to click this little button to allow you to talk, which is one of the downside of webinars. But I'm doing that now if you would like to come off mute and ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So good evening. I am from Ukraine, so I present Uzhhorod National University. So I have recently found information about the Global University Coalition, and I would just, because we are planning to conduct an event. The only thing is that there is indicated when providing information on the site about this event that like it should be online, but like we were in fact we are planning it offline, but I mean, is it possible that we are planning it offline, and it's like mostly, you know, for school, so we are inviting school teachers, students, the colleagues, so it's like more, you know, departmental.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. We have seen a variety of virtual or in-person events planned for SDG Week, and both work well in different ways. I think some of our panelists shared with the virtual. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought that, like, I mean, that this is like, you know, mandatory, that it should be virtual. Like last year, I and my colleague, because we present like, you know, different departments, like which are not even, you know, which are quite different, yes, in terms of areas. But that's really great because we have already worked on the poster. So today or even tomorrow, I'm going to include this information, so to register the information on the site. So that's really fantastic. So I've been listening to the colleagues from other universities of the world, and they are really inspiring, COIL experience, and I do agree that I've got this experience. So, and I'm going to help my colleague from another department who is the head of the Center for Sustainable Development in our university, like to help her to conduct, you know, these COIL practices, like, well, together with her. So I will help her and just being involving. So that's really fantastic. Thank you so much for this for this meeting and for all the information and the possibilities. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So we'll look forward to hearing more about your event. It sounds like a very cool event. Okay, we have a question in the chat. Zulkifli And 1 second, I can take you off mute. If you're able to speak to us. If not, I can ask your question in the chat.
Yeah, I can speak.
Great. Would you like to share your question?
Yes, I'm Zulkifli from Windara di Banda Aceh. We have talked several times through email, and currently we are working collaboratively with International Teacher Association, headquartered in Bangkok, to promote education in our province through volunteering. The teacher come to our province to teach the student. This is the simple activity work to present at SDG awareness weeks. But if yes, we will register soon. And that's my simple questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and good to see you. I think I saw you in October at the UGC events.
Yeah.
So I think absolutely it would be a good fit for the events calendar. To me, that definitely touches on SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 17 partnerships. So we would love to have your event on the calendar. So yes, please send us some information.
SDG 4 and 17. I see.
And probably others.
Yeah. And I see in the calendar that at the March 8th still vacant. Is it possible if we will present at this date and we will register tomorrow?
Absolutely, yes. And I will say SDG week, the kind of formal celebration is March 4th through 8th, but we are always willing to accept events for the events calendar that fall outside of those timelines. I know sometimes there are other major events going on during that time that prevent you from planning that week, or you need a little more time. So so March 8th is wonderful, but I also wanted to share that we're always accepting events through the UGC calendar on our website. So please send other SDG related events our way as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ms. Cartwright, for your answer. I will tell you to the team to prepare in next weeks.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, and if there are other questions, let us know, raise your hand, put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A. We've been trying to monitor the chat throughout. I was curious if any of the panelists had questions for other panelists. Just to start off, to give you all a chance to dialogue a little bit.
I actually do.
Okay, great.
Kshamta, you mentioned the cultural celebration events, and I am very curious if you could give some examples.
Yes, absolutely. So this is, we did this last year for the first time, and it was just so successful, and people just really had this, just different experience of feeling like they're in a space where they are represented and where they feel like they can connect with people. So what we did was basically try to outreach, again, distributed planning. So we can't do everything. So reached out to cultural student groups, for example, and they can come and have a dance performance or an art performance. There was actually an art a workshop where people can actually make paper mache. There was a indigenous weaving workshop that we brought in. There was a celebration by an indigenous group that we brought in with children and adults performing. There was also a poetry jam where people were able to slamposium sort of thing. We actually just finished a slamposium event at the Climate Emergency Week. So UBC also does a Climate Emergency Week in the second week of February. We did amazing events in that week as well. But really just bringing these skills and talents that already exist in our communities that are sort of a gateway to these goals in a lot of ways that often go unlooked. And so we are trying to really just increase awareness, but also bring in the limelight that arts could be a way to achieving the goals. And how do we understand goals through different art forms and art mediums and cultural ways of knowing. And I think my key takeaway from our last year's gatherings were really that cultural knowledges are valid knowledges that we need to integrate more in our academia. And we often overlook these cultural knowledges, and we need to bring those into more perspective. And I think that is an oversight in the Western cultures that we really need to integrate more and move forward with that. So I don't know if I gave you enough examples, but I can send you some links to look into.
I would love to. I will write to you afterwards. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Wonderful, thanks. Antonina, did you have a question?
No, not a question. Just to getting back to Pelin's request, how culture can be involved with celebrating or raising awareness of SDGs. For example, I represent the Department of English Philology, and last year with my colleague, for example, she's the director of this Center of Sustainable Development, but I was trying to convey the message through eco-criticism, for example, in literature, because literature is a part of culture. So that could be really fantastic. So I mean, this is another example for Pelin. What else can be? So we can, through fiction texts, we can also just integrate them within the events. And this time that we are planning, I'm also going to talk about things related to how literature, yes, philology can be the one through which you can make people aware of this issue of SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you for that additional context. It's really helpful to hear from different people in the audience and their different experiences. And a good reminder too that celebration is certainly a part of SDG Week as well. So celebrating the cultures that we're a part of, that surround us, that we work with towards achieving the sustainable development goals. And we are close to time. So I want to take the last few minutes just to thank our wonderful 3 panelists today. Thank you so much. If you can give them a virtual round of applause. Really appreciate you all being here today and sharing your experiences with us. Thank you, Christian, for helping to co-organize on behalf of the SUNY network. Very appreciative of your partnership, and thank you all as attendees. Thank you so much for coming today and participating in the discussion and sharing this time with us. So we hope to see you at some SDG Week events and some University Global Coalition events in the future. And we will follow up with this webinar, with the recording, in case you missed any or you'd like to share with anyone, and look forward to engaging with you all soon. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.